Saint Saturn was still holding Bonnie's small body. And she believed that everything was this guy's fault. The other members below gradually lost feeling and couldn't move. They wondered what the hell was happening and learned it was related to Saint Saturn's devil fruit ability. Luffy, lying nearby, also woke up, demanding something to eat to regain his strength, begging someone to bring him food. Those involved were now all captured. And Bonnie was informed by the opponent that Kuma had died. The scene shifted to the Revolutionary Army. Recently, too much news had occurred, causing people to worry. Ivankov also asked if Dragon was in a bad mood, while he wondered if Kuma was controlled by the remaining power. Where his friend was now. Ivankov thought that if it were him, he would rush straight into Mary Joie's without hesitation. But not for Kuma. He believed that his friend would go to meet the person he loved most. As for Bonnie, Saturn declared that he would let the two father and daughter meet in hell. Surrounded by Marine soldiers, her allies were all restrained and unable to move. The girl angrily wanted to struggle to escape by activating her devil fruit ability. At least she wanted to drag him down with her and not die alone. Her arm then swelled up like Nika's form, surprising everyone. For Bonnie's future, she punched the opponent's face extremely hard. But nothing happened. Saturn also looked disdainful and asked if that was really a punch. The little girl felt her body weakening and wondered why. When Saint Saturn explained it, he continued to squeeze Bonnie's body and talked about her knowing Nika's name but not truly knowing what it was. The old man secretly thought that the girl had not yet realized the connection between Nika and Luffy's white form. Otherwise, Bonnie could have done something already. Below, the main character had now been given food, and he replenished his energy in front of the Marines, who understood nothing. When asked about this, they also didn't know where the food came from. Saint Saturn demanded that Luffy be immediately restrained with sea-stone cuffs. Above, Bonnie continued to try to activate her devil fruit ability to weaken the opponent. But it had no effect. His age could not be controlled like ordinary people. To answer this question, Saturn revealed that the real reason her power was weakening was because he was the one who granted her that ability. Hearing this, Bonnie was very shocked. But for the old man, this was just an experiment to see if he could transfer power from a devil fruit to a newborn who couldn't eat yet. By extraction. And so Bonnie was chosen. The experiment was successful. But the devil fruit itself was useless. It only allowed her to transform into possible future versions of herself. But the more she knew about reality, the more limited this ability became. When asked about Nika, Bonnie confirmed that the sun god was real. Ever since my father was turned into a cyborg to serve you, I have always hoped to find Nika, hoping that person would save my father. However, Saturn believed that her weakening was proof that she was starting to believe Nika didn't exist. Speaking so truthfully that she couldn't argue back. He laughed when Kuma also believed in the Buccaneer tribe's legend. Kuma had also previously spoken about wanting to become Nika to help others. He himself was the one who conducted drug experiments on her mother. Ginny was the 8th wife of someone from the Holy Land. But those blue spots appeared. So the experiment was considered a failure. At this moment, Bonnie remembered her father's image, her heart pounding as she learned truths she had never heard. Saturn found it interesting that even though the experiment with Ginny failed, the disease was inherited by Bonnie. Outside the island, an explosion occurred. Someone had just landed at extremely high speed. The poor girl began to cry for her fate, after learning that he was the one who caused all the suffering for her mother. Bonnie was very angry. Dr. Vegapunk was also angry when he learned that the disease his granddaughter suffered from was caused by Saturn, because of the sapphire scale disease. Their whole family had suffered. Kuma also had to sacrifice himself for it. And after all, it was all his plan. He knew from the beginning yet offered to turn Kuma into a cyborg so his daughter could live. The other party told Vegapunk to put himself in his shoes. To him, they were all insects. Who would care about the feelings of insects? At this moment, the person who appeared outside was Kuma, by some miracle. He wanted to come here to save Bonnie. Explosions occurred one after another, making it impossible for the Marines to resist. The news of Bartholomew Kuma's appearance surprised everyone. Vegapunk also didn't know how his friend could get here. Saturn also didn't believe this. Bonnie couldn't stop crying. She was extremely scared and couldn't say a word. The Marines also tried to shoot to stop Kuma's advance. But with his cyborg body, he continued to stand up. Having lost all will to fight, Bonnie thought to herself, perhaps now if I die, everything will be better. She cried out in despair, making those below heartbroken. Her cries seemed to urge Kuma on more strongly. Saturn then ordered to shoot her head, but before he could do anything, Kuma shot forward, successfully freeing his daughter. The old man intended to use his foot to end everything, but Kuma used his body to shield her. When his daughter opened her eyes, she found herself in her father's palm. They hugged each other, but Kuma couldn't say a word. Looking at Bonnie, Kuma knew what to do: directly confront Saint Saturn. The other party was surprised, not understanding why it turned out this way, because Kuma should have died. Bonnie then transformed back into her small form, making her father even angrier. Sad memories flooded back. His daughter burst into tears. Seemingly a few days after being rescued by the Revolutionary Army, Saint Saturn had pressed the self-destruct button to destroy Kuma, so he was sure that he was dead. But he didn't understand why he appeared now. With his power, Kuma strengthened his arm, then grabbed his opponent's beard and punched him directly in the face with hatred for what he had done to his family. The old man was blown away to everyone's surprise. Having taken a powerful blow from Kuma, Saint Saturn was severely injured and unable to get up immediately. The Marines were extremely worried about his safety and couldn't believe that Kuma had confronted one of the 5 most powerful people in the world. This was an unprecedented crime. But for Kuma, it no longer mattered. At this moment, all he wanted was to protect his daughter. His body, heavily injured, then collapsed from exhaustion, taking advantage of the Marines rushing to rescue Saint Saturn, who was crushed under the rubble. The others were now able to move normally again. Sanji quickly ran to Bonnie to check if she was injured anywhere. Frankie said this was their chance, so they had to quickly get her onto the ship and escape. Atlas said she would take Kuma with them, but the very next second, they had to stop. Hearing Bonnie's cries, her father, though tired, still managed to go over and comfort her. Witnessing this, Dr. Vegapunk wondered what had happened. According to theory, Kuma no longer had any memories. Yet, in his eyes, he still remembered Bonnie. Slowly walking with a heavy body, he reached out and embraced his little daughter. Thanks to this, Bonnie stopped crying and called out, "Dad." Seeing this scene, everyone was moved to tears. It had been too long since they had hugged like this. Vegapunk then recalled that he had not installed a bomb in Kuma's body as instructed by the government. He knew that if he did, they would use his friend as a suicide weapon. But in the end, he still had to follow the government's instructions. He installed a complete shutdown button inside Kuma. Yet his friend was still alive and here, protecting his beloved daughter. This left Saturn utterly astonished and unable to react, as he was the one who pressed the self-destruct button to deactivate Kuma. Somehow, that father still retained his own will. There was no reason for Kuma to act like this. He even flew here himself to find Bonnie. Scientifically, it was completely inexplicable. Vegapunk then realized that the cause might be the special bloodline of the Buccaneers. Nearby, Admiral Kizaru was still sitting in one place, not acting. Sentomaru was also very happy to know that Kuma had come to save his daughter. The confusing thing was that Luffy had disappeared without a trace. The Marines were extremely worried and didn't know how to report it. At this moment, Bonnie happily touched her father's mechanical body, saying thank you, and also revealed that she had seen all of his memories, from when Kuma was born and lived with his family, until they were enslaved by the celestial dragons. Kuma also began to remember everything, from the time his father told him his mother had gone to heaven, and how both father and son were in immense pain and could only cry. Then came the escape from hell at God Valley with Ivankov and Ginny, when they successfully created a miracle, saving all slaves from their death sentences, and then the memory of Bonnie being brought to him to care for. Gradually, his daughter grew up, and the two of them made a promise to explore the world together. And if they reached the Sky Island, they could find Nika. This was what Bonnie was looking forward to. And when she turned 19, she wanted to go to Fishman Island. The picture Bonnie drew for Kuma later became his symbolic flag. Looking at it, this father remembered his little daughter. Their time in Dr. Vegapunk's research lab was also very happy. Occasionally, they would all sit and eat pizza together. Kuma had once thanked Bonnie for being born into this world. Now, recalling those memories, Both father and daughter were very happy. The little girl also praised her father as an incredibly wonderful person. These words made Kuma remember Ginny's image when she was young. Bonnie's mother always acted strong to protect Kuma. Unfortunately, this couple could not be together, even though they both loved each other very much. When Bonnie saw that part, she knew how much her father had to sacrifice to protect her and her mother. She was very happy to know that he had written many letters to her during their time apart. Even though she only recently read them through her father's memories, she was very happy. This father always wanted his daughter to see the beautiful scenery in real life, not just through books. And finally, there was the message that he loved her. The time spent in the research lab with Vegapunk was also very interesting. So he invited Bonnie to come there for an adventure once she recovered. In the 2 years before he became a cyborg, Kuma tried to go to all the distant places in the world to explore. Even if everyone called him a tyrant, Bonnie still loved her father very much. And he was the kindest and most wonderful person in the world. The Marines were currently gathering forces to rescue Saint Saturn, and immediately after, his power erupted, blowing everyone away. He was extremely angry at being punched by Kuma. And Sanji's group was worried because they thought they had already defeated him. The opponent then jumped out of the rubble with serious injuries. And Frankie was surprised that Kuma's attack was effective. Saturn asked Vegapunk what was going on. Had he secretly influenced Kuma's body? The doctor didn't know how to explain it, saying it was the power of love. The opponent heard this and considered it a bug. The dark power then helped him regenerate his body as if nothing had happened. Facing an enemy of this caliber made Sanji worried. But as soon as the opponent targeted Kuma, he rushed out to help. The Straw Hat Pirates had been helped a lot by Kuma, so this was the time to repay him. Frankie was about to fire a laser when Admiral Kizaru intervened. He praised them for developing so much and wanted to see if that growth could stop him. Although Frankie managed to shoot through Saturn, he was also defeated. Bonnie ran over and asked the doctor to save her father because he couldn't move right now. Vegapunk asked Atlas to carry their friend away while they stayed to hold them off. Sanji and Frankie also intended to stay but were sent away by the scientist so he could handle it himself. Admiral Kizaru wanted to end this here. The old friend felt that Kizaru was truly pitiful, recalling the time they spent together playing happily. This admiral admitted that he was indeed pitiful for not being able to cry, thinking it would have been better if he had worn dark sunglasses today. Outside, the warships had received orders to punish those who challenged the world government. This island was considered a threat, so everything would be burned down just like Ohara. Saint Saturn declared that those who study the world's secrets, those who carry the bloodline of a vanished race, those who awaken the ancient god, this island is where all that he declared converges, so it must be destroyed. The Buster Call order has been activated, and all naval warships off the coast are ready to fire. Dr. Vegapunk asked Saint Saturn to revoke that order, because this place is the future of humanity. Sanji's group was trying to get Kuma to hide, and Bonnie was very sad to see her father unable to move. Her eyes began to tear up, feeling sorry for her father. Returning to Vegapunk's negotiation, even though he said Egghead was the future of humanity, the other party still disagreed. A subordinate came to invite the two leaders back to the ship because it was very dangerous here. But the old man said that he and Kizaru would stay here until the very end. After preparing for the bombardment, they should immediately open fire. The vice admirals hesitated upon hearing this but were dismissed by Admiral Kizaru. Dr. Vegapunk thought that if only he died, everything would end, so why destroy this island? Egghead stores many of the latest research achievements from all fields. If it is destroyed, humanity's scientific progress will regress by 100 years. His old friend turned to Kizaru for help, but Kizaru looked sad and just turned away. Unable to help, Saturn asked if Dr. Vegapunk was hiding anything else from the world government, or if he was secretly creating something troublesome. If so, he didn't need progress that carried rebellious ideas. The genius scientist bowed his head and begged one more time. Unexpectedly, the other person revealed that he had sent a fleet to destroy the ship that left the island yesterday, carrying all the scientists working there. The reason given was that there was someone on that ship who knew something about the Void Century. Hearing this, Dr. Vegapunk asked heartbrokenly why he did that. They knew nothing, they were all innocent people. Saturn blamed him for dragging them into this. Just like the people of Ohara. They were drawn into the desire to explore things from the past that no one was allowed to know. He angrily said that Vegapunk was foolish, so he should disappear forever with this island. Off the coast, all the soldiers were retreating from the island, everything was ready, so they could open fire immediately. As for Sanji, he was urging his teammates to quickly go to the rendezvous point. While Vegapunk was stalling for time, they had to seize this opportunity. Bonnie asked what about him, and Sanji smiled and replied, "Don't worry, I'll go there and bring the doctor along." Frankie also relied entirely on him and wished him good luck. The young man quickly contacted Nami's group to ask about the situation there. Everyone seemed to have reached the back gate. Nami was shocked to learn that the Marines had activated the Buster call order. Their crew had faced it countless times, so Usopp and Chopper were very scared. Robin was seriously injured but quite worried about the others. She wanted to do something to help but couldn't. Chopper saw this and advised his friend not to do anything but to rest. Nami asked about the captain and learned that he hadn't been seen yet. However, Sanji guessed that Luffy would be fine. The important thing was to find a way to escape here immediately. Currently, Zoro was still holding off Lucci and couldn't return, so Jinbei also had to go there to help, because if he left him alone, he would definitely get lost. Brook was currently helping Lilith move the Sunny. Their original plan had fallen apart because Vegaforce 01 had been destroyed by Kizaru. Fortunately, their musician had another idea. With his ability, he froze the surface of the clouds so that the ship could glide smoothly. The girl praised the skeleton for being so good. With this method, they would reach the back entrance soon. Praised as a genius, Brook was very happy. When Lilith asked how to stop the ship, he said he hadn't thought of that yet. As a result, the girl slapped him for being so stupid. If they continued like this, they would fall straight down. Brook cried out for help, not knowing what to do. The scene shifts to the Marines. After seeing the protective barrier still in place above, he ordered them to fire into the urban area first. The target was to destroy the central factory and the future city. Hundreds of cannonballs were fired simultaneously. The rain of bombs worsened the situation. Yet at this moment, someone was still eating comfortably. Luffy's stomach was so full he couldn't eat anymore. There were still a few Marine soldiers blocking his escape. However, the subsequent bomb rain blew them all away. Luffy, being made of rubber, was also bounced elsewhere. The unfortunate ones who hadn't returned to their ships in time shared the same fate as the island. With buildings continuously collapsing, pacifistas continuously fired with terrifying power, piercing through everything. The future Vegapunk had built collapsed right before his eyes. He watched heartbroken as his empire gradually disappeared. His emotions completely gone. The doctor collapsed, as the future of humanity ended here, along with his own distant dreams. Saturn looked at Kizaru, ordering the admiral to finish off his close friend. He accepted the order, gritting his teeth and moving forward. Sanji arrived just in time, urging Dr. Vegapunk to run. On the other side, Atlas was activating the travel device. After launching at the speed of sound, Frankie was extremely excited. The travel time was only a little over 30 seconds. Unfortunately, the pipeline passed by Kizaru. With his devil fruit ability, even at the speed of sound, he could still catch up. As a result, the group inside the rocket was cut in half. They flew out, putting everyone in danger. Sanji angrily cursed Kizaru, then tried to fly up to save his comrades. Saint Saturn saw Kuma and immediately ordered the pacifistas to target the father and daughter. Bonnie reached out for her father's body. They became the new targets of the cyborgs. Unable to do anything, the daughter's cry of "Father" made Kuma regain consciousness for a moment. He used all his remaining strength to hug Bonnie and shield her with his back. The little girl was moved to tears, thinking that at least if they died, the father and daughter would be together. The scoundrel looked at this scene with glee. He thought of the daughter Kuma risked his life to save, now having to die at the hands of his own clones. This was truly deserved for a bunch of insects. Dr. Vegapunk was also heartbroken seeing the people he loved in danger. Earlier, after hearing that his granddaughter had become a pirate, the worst-case scenario had appeared in his mind. The pacifistas, shaped like Kuma, would personally shoot her down. This was truly heartbreaking beyond words. A barrage of destructive beams fired towards them. Sanji tried to approach and help. The scene shifts to the warship fleet ordered to eliminate the scientists leaving the now burning island. It's unclear what happened. The surviving Marine soldier tried to report to Admiral Kizaru that they had failed to destroy the exploration ship. and someone was heading towards Egghead. At this moment, Luffy was being threatened by dozens of marine soldiers with guns. They demanded that the Sea Emperor surrender immediately. However, the main character just glared, calling them all weaklings and telling them not to order him around. Just like that, his large, round body immediately shrank back to its normal shape. Digesting a large amount of food in a short time was too illogical. Astonishing the marine soldiers, they believed that Luffy was indeed not human, because who could make their belly swell to its maximum and then shrink down so quickly? Since bombs and bullets were still raining down on the island, the soldiers ignored Luffy and returned to their ships, as it was too dangerous there. A loud laugh came from within the smoke, which provoked the remaining marine soldiers. Just as they were about to use sea stone handcuffs to neutralize his devil fruit power, the ground suddenly turned into rubber. The warrior of liberation had returned. Once again, Luffy, in his Sun God Nika form, was incredibly joyful, laughing and joking, scaring everyone away. On the coast, the Marines were still using warships to shell the island. The damage was immense, but Dr. Vegapunk didn't care about that now. What he feared was that Bonnie and the others would die. Knowing he needed to do this to save everyone, the doctor called Atlas to relay a message to his granddaughter. While Saturn and Kizaru weren't paying attention, Vegapunk had completed his mission. He urged Atlas to quickly tell Bonnie about this. Below, Sanji was also trying to get close to rescue them. Below were a series of cyborgs ready to open fire. Atlas tried to approach the father and daughter to deliver the message from the doctor. It was a gift Vegapunk had for his beloved granddaughter. Understanding everything, Bonnie looked at her father, then turned around and shouted loudly for the pacifistas below to hear. She told them not to shoot Dad, and to help them escape this island. Upon hearing that command, all the cyborgs immediately stopped and turned to aim at the marine warships. This was a huge shock that left the other side no time to react. Just like that, many warships were shot down in an instant. Perhaps this was the final mission of the pacifistas when they were created by Dr. Vegapunk. The damage to the Marines was immense. The only thing he worried about ultimately did not come true. The years Bonnie and her father lived in the laboratory. From that moment, the doctor had foreseen that the future would become like this. What could be more terrifying than being killed by one's own beloved father? To prevent Kuma from harming his own daughter, Vegapunk programmed a special command into all Kuma-like units that only he knew. Even if they received orders from the government, or even if the world turned its back on the father and daughter, the Kuma-shaped pacifistas would forever stay with Bonnie and protect her. This was his own selfish wish, and the consequence of this action was being stabbed through the chest by Saturn. The doctor had foreseen the consequences but still accepted it. Witnessing that scene, everyone was worried, but the danger had not disappeared. Kizaru had been ordered to eliminate everyone above. With the speed of light, he flew towards the father and daughter to attack. Just like that, everyone was hit. Sanji tried to counterattack but it was useless. Kizaru approached Bonnie and told her not to worry. He would finish it quickly so she wouldn't feel any pain. At the most critical moment, the laugh of the warrior of liberation rang out. In the very next second, a giant, reinforced fist punched the Marine Admiral far away. The girl knew it was Straw Hat Luffy, but she had no idea where he was. After eating his fill, he had enough strength. Just like that, the entire island was transformed into highly elastic rubber. The building swayed to the joyful laughter coming from the main character. Saint Saturn poked the ground with his staff, realizing that everything here now had the properties of rubber. The warrior also approached, thinking this game was starting to get fun thanks to Luffy's special ability. The group of friends were unharmed after falling from the sky, but they still faced a formidable enemy they couldn't defeat. Their only hope at this point was probably Luffy himself. Outside in the sea, the pacifistas were still firing at warships, and the Marines were trying their best to stop the biological robots. Admiral Kizaru, after being knocked away by the main character, was dazed and unable to get up. Bonnie saw Dr. Vegapunk lying on the ground and immediately ran to check on him. He was still alive, so his granddaughter urged him to quickly get up and run. Their enemy advised them not to resist in vain. However, at this moment, Luffy arrived, making the buildings shake. The old man called him a troublesome brat, The drums of liberation that Luffy created once again awakened the giant robot on the island. This rhythm also helped Bonnie start to realize something. Back when the father and daughter were still at the church, they often talked about Nika, the legendary warrior. Kuma really wanted to become a hero to save the oppressed and suffering. His daughter also asked if he would come to save her, and he said of course. So, the father and daughter danced to the rhythm of liberation that Kuma knew. Legend says that Nika will come with laughter and move to this rhythm. The drums of liberation grew louder and louder. Bonnie intently looked at Luffy's current appearance. Everything matched her father's description of the hero of liberation. Dr. Vegapunk then confirmed that everything his granddaughter was thinking was true. At first, he didn't believe it, but after witnessing it with his own eyes, he understood. Luffy, the one Kuma entrusted his faith in, was the embodiment of the Sun God Nika. So, the person she had been searching for all this time was here. Bonnie was moved to tears and looked towards her father. Kuma was completely right, as everything he said about Nika was true. A hero who would powerfully change this world. Currently, the order to destroy this island was no longer effective, because out there, many people had been waiting for Nika for centuries. At the same time, a giant ship was approaching from the sea. They realized that the battle had begun, and as the newspapers had reported, both of them were here. The Marines then continued to receive bad news that a giant ship was approaching from behind. Seeing that symbol, a vice admiral had to send an alarm to all warships that the giants were coming. This was completely unexpected because everyone thought the two people on that ship had disbanded 100 years ago. The only thing that could make them present here was Luffy. So the Marines fired cannons at the giant ship. However, their firepower was too weak to cause any damage. To answer the question of why Dory and Brogy were here, the two giant warriors jumped down, submerging the marine ship. They laughed and unleashed powerful slashes, threatening the small people below. Of course, both of them were here at Luffy's call. Or rather, the Sun Gods. The giant pirate crew officially landed on the island.
With their colossal bodies, Dory and Brogy sent the Marines fleeing in terror. The large axe struck directly down onto the warship below their feet, shattering everything into many pieces. The giants began to shout, calling for the remaining members to come to the island to help Luffy. With just one jump, the two giants reached the mainland, followed by familiar figures who crushed everything in their path with a large ship. Oimo and Kashi were assigned by the captain to defeat all the troublesome marine ships. Dory reminded everyone to be careful and spread out to eliminate anyone who dared to touch the Straw Hat pirates. Hearing this, everyone laughed loudly to boost their morale. Just like that, they coordinated to destroy all nearby warships. The Marines could only scream in despair, unable to do anything, announcing that the legendary giant pirate crew had arrived. The leaders were Brogy and Dory. At this moment, the Marines still didn't know why they were here at this crucial moment. Warships from afar tried to fire cannons, but failed. With the giants' bravery, they continuously destroyed warships without any difficulty. At this time, Usopp, from above, discovered that his old friends had come to help, and was moved to tears. He asked why the great lords had come. Nami was delighted that Oimo and Kashi were also there, and the group began to recall what had happened years ago. For a very long time, the world had always feared the giant pirate crew, but they disbanded due to a fierce quarrel between the two captains, Dory and Brogy. Luffy and the other members unfortunately fell into that 100-year-long battle, even though they had forgotten the reason why the two sides fought. But Brogy and Dory continued. Luffy and Usopp were extremely amazed by the immense pride displayed by the two giant warriors. This motivated Usopp, who said, "This is exactly what I want to become, a brave warrior of the sea." And on another island, the Straw Hat Pirates met Oimo and Kashi, who wanted to know news about their captain. After that, everyone became friends, and now, when everyone was in danger, these friends came to help. Perhaps the giant pirate crew had heard some news, which is why they rushed here. This incident is an attack related to the government. The next day, it will surely be published in the newspaper. Although the news will be written in a way that benefits the government, it will still be enough to create a major shocking event. Usopp was also sure that the great lords would not come to fight, but to save them. So they also had to speed up the plan. Nami contacted Brook to ask how he was, and only heard the other girls scream. Brook reassured her not to worry. He would be there soon, with the Sunny. Although he still didn't know how to stop, he was very confident in his luck. advising Lilith that rushing wouldn't help. She was afraid that if they continued like this, they would crash into the barrier and explode. She contacted Nami again for help because she would pass by them. Elsewhere, Zoro and Lucci were still fighting without a clear winner. The situation was becoming more chaotic than ever, so Jinbei reminded the crew's swordsmen to end the fight quickly. After fighting for a while, Zoro was also out of breath from exhaustion, saying Lucci was truly stubborn. While he himself was in a hurry, the opponent said that only the final winner had the right to say that. The two sides continued to clash. Lucci reminded Zoro that he was making his teammates wait to distract him. Martial arts versus swordsmanship, but because the other person possessed an animal-type devil fruit, his stamina was far superior. Thus, Zoro was pushed back. The opponent knew the personalities of the Straw Hat crew members, which was that they wouldn't abandon anyone, so he simply needed to stall for time to win. Because that way, the other members would be stuck here. Hearing this, our swordsman replied that he was not the one to decide how long this battle would last. So don't be overconfident. Returning to the coast now not only means facing a giant pirate crew, but the Navy is still suffering heavy losses from the biological robots. About 30 small warships have been sunk, and the number is still increasing. There's no other way. The Vice Admiral of the Navy ordered the large ships to target the pacifistas to reduce the damage. Although it's still unknown why the biological robots rebelled, the top priority is still to preserve the Navy's forces. Nearby, despite the extremely intense battle, two other powerful figures were leisurely strolling. It had been a long time since they had participated in such a large battle, so they were quite excited. The sniper friend thought this was definitely a battle that could change the fate of the world. Returning to Bonnie, who was now looking at the image of the Sun God Nika. Every movement, every sound that Luffy made impressed her. She had always been looking for the warrior of liberation, and now that person had appeared, seeing her friend crying. Luffy asked if something was sad. Bonnie called Luffy an idiot. Of course she had to cry because she had always been looking for him. Luffy laughed and said that he had always been there with her all this time. She said that before she didn't know Luffy was the Sun God Nika. In fact, Luffy didn't even know what Nika was, and asked why she wanted to find him. Bonnie replied that she always wanted to be able to throw a powerful rubber punch like him. Hearing that, Luffy remembered that this friend had also used a similar move earlier. He criticized that punch as being very weak. Hearing that, Bonnie asked Luffy to demonstrate, to throw a powerful punch toward Saturn to avenge Vegapunk. He looked at the scientist and realized there was a large hole in his chest. Shocked, Luffy's eyes popped out. Their enemy had not yet acted, but declared that the insects would not be able to do anything to him. Luffy didn't think so, and when Bonnie asked him to take her and everyone off this island, Luffy agreed. By the way, he wanted to show Bonnie what a powerful punch was like. Conqueror's haki began to emanate, making Saturn worried. He continued to use his gaze to make Luffy unconscious, but this time he endured it. He laughed and charged, then used two giant fists to continuously punch Saturn in the face. He couldn't resist, and could only endure the damage Luffy inflicted. Bonnie witnessed this scene with great satisfaction. The words Kuma once said about Nika appeared in her mind. The actions of the warrior of liberation moved her soul. Nika was considered a legend, but that father had told his daughter that the warrior of liberation would make everyone laugh to the rhythm of liberation. And if the hero could change this world powerfully, Kuma believed it was Luffy. High above, our captain was still throwing a series of powerful punches at his opponent. As a result, Saturn couldn't bear it, and was sent flying through the buildings. Luffy laughed gleefully after those punches. Thanks to him, their group had time to escape. Atlas urged everyone to hurry up and go. Frankie also called Bonnie, but she was worried about Dr. Vegapunk. He said he was also a medical expert, so he knew his current condition well. So, don't worry, and run first. Suddenly Kizaru's voice rang out, saying that whether he moved or not, he would die anyway. Before everyone could react, this admiral shot a beam of light directly at them. Fortunately, Sanji stepped forward to block it, surprising the opponent. Frankie's jaw dropped, and he exclaimed that it was a laser beam, and yet he could still kick it away. His friend said that it didn't matter to him. His love would definitely be stronger than light. Hearing this, Kizaru found it funny, and wondered if there was something wrong with Sanji's head. Frankie was assigned the task of protecting Bonnie, and not letting her get hurt. Vegapunk continued to urge his granddaughter to leave the island with Kuma. They could now hover close to the ground, allowing them to move quite quickly. Luffy then praised his crewmate saying Sanji was amazing. The Marine Admiral said he would lose face if he couldn't bring back their heads. Sanji lit a cigarette and chuckled, saying that in that case he just needed to write an apology letter to Marine headquarters. Meanwhile, St. Saturn unexpectedly encountered 2 members of the Blackbeard pirates. Devon had eaten the mythical 9-tailed fox devil fruit. Seizing the opportunity, she approached and touched Saturn's body with one hand, saying the mission was complete. Van Augur, on the other hand, had eaten the warp fruit. When asked about being one of the dangerous prisoners on level 6, yet serving someone else, Devon said Captain Teach was special. The old man also knew that Blackbeard's bloodline was very special, coupled with the strange actions of this pirate crew. Saturn wanted to know what they truly wanted. Van Augur said it was the world, but he was attacked by the old man. However, using his warping ability, he safely transported his comrade to another location. Since the mission was complete, both intended to return immediately. Van Augur himself had not yet mastered his warping ability and still needed more practice. Suddenly, a familiar face appeared, crying with joy at having found the 2. Caribou couldn't believe he met them here and asked to join the crew, saying he set sail with the same hope as that person, and his dream was to become one of Blackbeard's subordinates. So he begged the 2 to take him with them.